Kentucky basketball has officially finished their non-conference slate, and I decided to bring somebody on to talk about the fascinating state of Mark Pope's Wildcats.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be sitting down to have just a wonderful conversation with Steven Peake of KSR. Does wonderful work over there as their video producer. Also hops on, talks a little ball with them over on the YouTube channel. They do such great work over there. Absolutely love this conversation. You're going to love it too. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind you, everybody out there, that we are free and available on all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the show if you're new. And if you're listening on podcast, would love to have you sub there as well. So without further ado, here is our conversation with Steven Peake of Kentucky Sports Radio. Steven Peake of Kentucky Sports Radio joins us now, video producer over there at KSR, does a wonderful job with their crew. Steven, really appreciate you coming on to talk about Kentucky and kind of just a non-conference slate in review and looking ahead. I kind of wanted to just get your thoughts on how the Cats have performed. Obviously, Kentucky now 11-2, huge pair of wins over Gonzaga, Duke, a couple of losses that have been a little disappointing, to say the least, especially with Ohio State. Kind of what has been your assessment of Mark Pope, new head coach, completely new team? What's been your assessment of the Cats so far?
Well, it's kind of hard to ask for much more, right? 11-2. The two losses are to Ohio State and Clemson. I mean, 11-2, I would have taken that if you had asked me before the season. Absolutely. I think when you look at the teams that you beat and the teams you lost to, you think maybe you let one get away there. But overall, I mean, no one else in the country is having success with this kind of roster turnover. Kentucky is the outlier. And I think the outlier is Mark Pope. I think his coaching has Kentucky punching above their weight a little bit. They really shouldn't have been in that Gonzaga game. Not down a man and not down both your point guards. They really, I mean, I think Duke's pretty good. I'm not saying Kentucky's not, but I think what he's been able to do in such a short time is nothing shy of like very impressive.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point there. I've continued to harp on this, and I even talked about it after the Brown game about how Mark Pope has done something for Kentucky that has just been incredibly refreshing just to watch it unfold. It's in-game adjustments and it's between-game adjustments. It feels like he has a really good grasp as far as what this team is good at, what they're not good at, and he is aware of the problems and is actively trying to solve them. Obviously, volume shooting, ball screen defense, you can talk about all the different things, but what really has impressed me, especially with those two big wins against the Blue Devils and the Bulldogs, is the ability to at least go, and obviously you're not going to come back from 15, 17, 18 down every single time you face an opponent like that, but to be able to address the issue and actually turn things around has been really awesome for me. That's even if they had lost like Duke or if they had lost against Gonzaga, the thing I would have continued to say was, man, we've got a guy that can coach. That's the thing that I'm really excited about here with Kentucky. And I had it written down and you kind of mentioned it there. The thing I've kind of continued to turn towards is the refrain for me has been, is if I told you Kentucky was going to be 11-2 coming out of their non-con slate, would you have taken that? And of course, the answer to that is yes. But despite beating Duke, despite beating Gonzaga and Seattle, it feels like, to an extent, Kentucky hasn't, to me, and you can kind of take this and run with it. It feels like Kentucky hasn't hit their peak, mostly for me because of the low percentage that they're shooting from three, and low obviously is still slightly above average, but it feels like the Kentucky Wildcats right now could be doing a little bit more, don't you think, especially on the offensive end?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Kentucky has not hit their peak just yet. This is a brand new team. Like I just said, this is, nobody none of these guys were teammates before this season. So absolutely, you're seeing some growing pains a little bit. You're seeing guys. I talked to Jaxson Robinson earlier this week talking about volume shooting, and he said going to that Ohio State game that some of the guys were passing up shots and also relying on the refs. I think we saw that kind of offense a lot under John Calipari, even with his really good teams. That 2015 team, I joke about it all the time. The offense was like one of the Harrisons, take your man off the dribble, draw a foul. Well, it's I think it's good that the players are talking about and noticing each game where there needs to be improvement. That means there's constantly being something that they're constantly adjusting. Ball screen defense. I think Jaxson mentioned that 7 times while we were talking to him for 5 minutes. It's clearly something they're working on. So not that like the past, not that John Calipari wasn't adjusting and doing some things different per opponent, but I think I do think it's a little bit more significant. And I do think there's a game. I feel there's a game plan for every team.
Yeah.
I feel like it's different depending on who they play. And under Cal, I mean, he would say, I don't really focus on what other teams do. I worry about my team because I know if my team plays up to their potential that we will win the game. And I do think you would hope that, he was looking at film. And I don't think there's a doubt I don't think there's a doubt that the entire coaching staff is watching a lot of film with this current coaching staff.
Absolutely. And we're kind of sitting here praising, the coaching and kind of how they've been able to kind of make so many different things work for this team. And I know that it's a pretty balanced group. Obviously, you've got so many different guys that you can get in different spot up and catch and shoot situations, and they can execute, which is, again, kind of what I mean whenever I say, has this team hit their peak? Because so many of these guys weren't just good at that, but they were really good at that coming out of the portal. Is there a guy that has individually impressed you so far through this non-conference slate? Is there a guy that's kind of stepped up and played better than your expectations? I mean, there's several names you could pick from here, but
yeah, there is. Honestly, Otega Oweh has been the consistent guy. I think when I first saw him shoot the ball, I was like, oh boy, like I don't know how you're going to get, but man, that guy has been consistent. I don't love how his shot looks, but left wide open, he'll hit some threes. And he has hit some, he'll hit some the rest of the way. He has been the guy that has really taken the step that I think a lot of people expected Jaxson Robinson to take.
Yep.
Because I think Jackson's been fine. I mean, Jackson's won, probably not. I mean, I wouldn't say individually won, but he played a very massive role in that Gonzaga game. And he had to take over at point guard, and he hits what is basically the game-winning shot. So he's been good. He's been fine. But I think like what we all sort of expected was for him to take this massive jump. So that's where Otega Oweh becomes that guy, because he has been the guy that seems to have made that jump, and he's been Kentucky's most consistent player so far this season, in my opinion.
I think what Otega has done has been really exciting to see, not just for this season, just to know that he can go out there and at minimum get you 10 points and he can hit some of those open shots. But it's also exciting for next year's roster, just expecting him, if he doesn't declare, if he doesn't transfer, to come back and be somebody that you can continue to rely on next season. And I don't want to sit here and say that he's going to project out to be some insane talent next season that gets a mid to high first round draft grade. But you saw what Kentucky was able to do with 2 years of Antonio Reeves, where he was just kind of sometimes quietly the most consistent guy on the roster, sometimes extremely loud with the way that he was able to light up things offensively. Oweh is somebody that I'm looking at here and going, okay, if Kentucky's going to make a deep NCAA tournament run, which obviously is on the table considering the opponents that they have competed with and have already beaten, All right, before we continue our conversation with Steven Peake of KSR, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Game Time. Attending the new 12-team playoff games is an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before, and I remember the excitement of past college football playoff games and cannot wait to make new memories with the updated format and the extra teams involved. It has already been extremely fun. Recently, I used Game Time Picks to find tickets for an upcoming game. Browsing through the deals was a breeze, and I found great value for all kinds of seats around the venue. The Super Deal in particular stood out here as the best value for the event. I loved that I could see the seat views before buying and that the app shows the total cost all up front so you don't get confused about what you're buying with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, on the on-time ticket delivery and the lowest price guarantee gave me complete peace of mind. There's literally no other place to go get tickets for all kinds of events in your area. Music, theater, sporting events near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time by downloading the Game Time app, creating an account, and using code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. If you're going to make a run, you have to be able to have somebody like him to rely on and to look back on. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this other guy here, Lamont Butler, somebody that there was a lot of conversation between Kentucky fans about whether or not he was going to even start this offseason, despite several different places saying, yeah, he's gonna. And there was kind of an iffy conversation about like, well, it would Kerr or would Kriisa be better? Would Butler be better? And I'm not sitting here trying to tell you one over the other, but it's very clear you need somebody like Oweh and you need somebody like Butler in the backcourt beside him. How valuable has Butler been to this team so far, man?
Well, we already have the Lamont Butler game, and if you're from Jefferson County like I am, like doing it on that stage, I mean, you're a hero. You're a hero for Kentucky fans. Beating Louisville nearly single-handedly. I think he had 33 in that game. Dude was on fire from downtown, which is not something I thought we were getting with Lamont Butler. So that has been a nice surprise. I kind of thought he was going to be like, he's going to be defensive specialist, but I mean, when you pour in 33 against the arch rival, like, I mean, you're a legend. Like that will always be known as the Lamont Butler game. And as we get like a decade into the future, it'll be, he scored 55 points. Like people just forget, like people think that Josh Harrelson in 2011 hit like 10 threes. Like it's crazy. I think he scored like 11 points, but it's like the Josh Harrelson game, but you have the Patrick Sparks game from 2004, that Lamont is now like, he's in Kentucky basketball history just from that one performance. So that was awesome. And you clearly see like what his absence does for Kentucky. I mean, I can't I think about this now daily. What are the odds that you get one point guard hurt and the very next day you get your backup point guard hurt? And it feels like Kentucky, no matter who the coach is, it's just the uniform. We get guys with lower leg injuries all the time now. So like Lamont has said, some days I'm 100%, some days I'm 80%. And I think like it probably is somewhere like, it just sucks because, you can tell like that Ohio State game. There were times he's playing defense where it looked like that's not Lamont Butler. Like he's standing straight up. I guess he plays defense like that, but maybe on a hurt ankle. Not saying you take a play off, but I mean, you can't help but think about it. This is his final season. He's got some things he wants to prove. It's beneficial for him to be in as many games as he can be. Yeah. So it's going to be nice to get Kerr Kriisa back too. How much of an impact do you think that makes? Because Kerr hasn't quite been like him. He's been fine again, like he's been fine, but he hasn't been the guy that we thought, or really hasn't been the shooter that he was just last year, just a year ago. How do you feel about like his absence and what that can do for Kentucky?
I think bringing him back does a couple of different things for this offense. I think when you look at the way that this offense distributes the ball, I mean, obviously the entire conversation that the media and that people want to have is about, oh, well, the bigs do such a good job distributing the ball because they're like focal points of the offense. And yes, that is true. But to be able to have somebody like Kriisa who can still go out there and get you 3, 4, 5 assists in very limited time, I think does open up things for your offense to know that, hey, you've got multiple guys on the floor here, not just in your backcourt or not just with Butler. You've got several guys here on the floor that could make something happen there. And to me, Steven, again, just kind of refraining on how can this team, like where can they improve to like hit their peak? Man, like you mentioned, Kerr Kriisa not shooting well to start the year, 26.3%. But to go back to what I was saying about like spot up and scoring, and I think Synergy is the place that tracks all of this. He was in the 99th percentile of spot up scores last season. He was one of the best catch and shoot guys. And by the way, Kobe Brea, 100th percentile. He was the best. So Kentucky got 2 of the best in that category out of the portal. And one of them has played well. One of them hasn't. And my whole thing I keep coming back to is if Kriisa gets back on the floor, I don't expect the poor shooting to just continue. This is a guy that throughout the entirety of his career hasn't been a bad shooter. I mean, freshman year, he shot what? I'm sorry. Yeah. The worst he shot this in his career was 33.6% in 2022 when he was the primary point guard for Arizona. Outside of that, worst season, 36.6%. If you can get him up to 32 and you can give him a little bit of volume, that's a valuable asset on the court, especially with his assist rate. So yeah, I think Kriisa, if you get him back, that's big, just to not have to rely on Butler so much on ball. I think you've also seen Butler thrive a little bit off ball. Case in point, all of those open threes that he got against Louisville, that he was able to knock down. So yeah, I think that just having him back gives you another weapon for what is an extremely deep team. Is he going to be scoring 15, 16 points a night? No. Is he bringing the best defense on the floor? I don't think so. But I think he provides you energy. I think he provides you passion, and he can do the little analytical things that kind of open up other things for what is one of the best offenses in America right now. So yeah, I think Kriisa is huge, man. I think he would be really, really big, especially I'm trying not to go too much on a tangent. When you think about, the NCAA tournament and how much guard play matters, experienced guard play matters. Having somebody else like Kriisa to be a factor is huge. So yeah, I think because sorry, I was gonna say because the thing is like Travis Perry is, I mean, he might be like one of our favorite Kentucky players by the time he's played 4 years there. Like, not yet. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's not quite there yet. And I think he's the kind of guy, he can come in like in a pinch and hit you a couple threes and, maybe swing the game. Like that might happen this year. But I think that's also why you need Kerr, because Travis just isn't quite at that level yet that you can count on him in these big games. Let's say Lamont gets in foul trouble, Jaxson can't run point, 30 minutes. So he'll be called upon if Kerr is not able to go. So I think it's like huge. I mean, I think it sucks you won't have him on Saturday against Florida. Because I mean that's right out of the gate, man. This SEC is going to be tough. Do you care if I just want to ask you about that? About what would I don't want to steal the questioning or anything, but I'm more interested in knowing what you think about I've said earlier this year, Kentucky goes 8-10 in the SEC. Do you think they make the tournament? I mean, just based off of, okay, let's walk this out. So they already have they have 2 quad 1 wins. If they go 8-10, let's assume at the very least they get, they'll have to, let's see, they have 1, 2, 3, 4 quad 2 games. Every other game is a quad 1. So if they go 8-10, at the very least, they'd get 4 more quad 1 wins, which would give them 6. Didn't they have 6 last year? I can go check this real quick. If they had 6 last year and they got it, my answer is yes. with their resume, I would feel like they'd have to get in if they went 8-10. This is also an interesting question to ask Torvik because they have a team cast thing where you can project out wins and losses.
Oh, wow. That is interesting.
I should have done that. I should have done that before we hopped on. Okay.
Sorry. I should have brought it up. I was going to ask you about it because I do think Kentucky fans are going to have to, I think, be a little bit patient with this.
Yes.
This is a team, again, that was thrown together at the last minute. If guys start playing like they're like first round picks, there's a couple guys they have that might fall in that category, but they haven't really been it yet.
Sure.
If they can start doing that, then okay. All right. Like let's talk about 10 to 12 wins. But I think like 12 to 13 wins might win the whole thing. So like 8-10 is very, very possible. And that's one thing I've kind of tried to to kind of tell myself as a Kentucky fan, that 10 losses in the SEC this year is possible. A losing record is actually possible. And it's not because this team's not good. I think they've proven that they're pretty decent. But this is going to be the toughest. I don't know, toughest of all time, possibly. Do we liken it to like the Big East when it was like really rolling with Kimba, like 2011 year? I think
you could do that. Yeah, I think that's fair. It's rough, dude.
What did they do that year? I wonder.
That's a good question. I'm trying now that you've got me curious about this. I'm putting this into Torvik right now. Actually, let's see. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we will make the 8th win a win over LSU there, and they'll lose on the road to Missouri just because.
Connecticut was 9-9. They were 9-9 that year.
Yikes!
In the Big East, and then won the Big East tournament, and then won the national championship,
and just caught fire. Okay, yeah. If they went 8-10 in conference play, Torvik says if they would be 21-3. Just take a stab. They make the tournament. Take a stab at what seed they'd be.
I was gonna say maybe as high as a 6 seed.
They have them right there at the very top of the 4 seed line. It would be them almost as a 3 seed. That is how strong the SEC is, I guess. Well, yeah, you have 1, 2, 3 different SEC teams projected as 1 seeds, I guess, in this computer model just run through. Bama would be a 2 seed, no SEC teams on the 3 line, and then Kentucky would be the highest rated 4 seed with Mississippi State right behind them.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that was my question to you. This is probably, like you said, best I've seen the SEC in my lifetime. Kentucky projected somewhere between 11-7, 9-9. I think you guys actually released an article about an hour before we started recording about just like the 3 different major sites and what they project. KenPom, which I love, says 9-9, and I hate that. If you had to just put a number on it, like you said, reality is you could go 8-10. If I was saying, Steven, you have to give me a win-loss record for SEC play right now, knowing how they've played, what would you say?
That's about where I would be at. I'm going to go one more better though.
Okay.
I'm going to say they win like one more game that maybe they shouldn't. So they go 9-9.
Okay.
Which is exactly what UConn was when they won the national title in 2011, because that's how I see the SEC this year. And that's going to make Nashville so much fun because it really is going to be like up for grabs. Like, I mean, it should be 12 teams that think they have a chance like of winning the tournament.
And frankly, if it goes to plan, they should, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, there was an argument back in those Big East days that it was harder, at least I had to hear this from Louisville fans. It's harder to win the Big East tournament than it is the NCAA tournament. That might be true for the SEC this year also, that it could be more difficult to win win 3 or 4 games in a row in Nashville than it would be to win the national championship, because you still only have to win, like if you're a 1 seed, you may only have to win 3, like beat 3 really good teams.
Now the question is, where's your Kemba Walker? If you go 9-9, where is Kemba on the roster?
That's a good time for Jaxson to show everyone that he really is that guy.
Yeah.
You see it in spurts, man. And I know, like, I'm really bad at this. I just change topics so fast. So if you need to draw me back in, let me know, because it just sparked like this thing I've been thinking about, like, since we got back from New York City. And that was just like, when Jaxson like hits his first couple shots, like, all right, here, if he hits a couple shots in a row, like, it might be like game on. But man, when he misses one, he just like, he looks up like, what am I doing wrong? It's like, you got to be okay with missing. And I think he gets in his head, and then you see defensive intensity drops and everything else. And because I'm sure he's thinking the whole time, like, I just, why is the shot not going in? And I got to make this because it's Madison Square Garden, or this is my chance to go show NBA scouts. So that's he's got to be that guy if they're going to do something like that. Like, honestly, if they're going to go 9-9, if they have a chance of being over 500, it's going to be because of Jaxson Robinson, in my opinion. Like, he's got to be that guy. He's capable of it. I watch videos of him from BYU all the time, and I see what he's capable of doing in spurts so far at Kentucky. He's so good. I swear it's just all confidence. But if he can be that, if he can be that, then Kentucky's got a shot of being above 500, and he's got a chance to play that Kemba Walker role. Am I being too, like, I don't know. That, we put too much hope. We get too much hope. It's just like, we're gonna let myself down.
I don't think it's unrealistic at all, especially considering what Jaxson was supposed to be whenever he was brought in, right? Like, he was supposed to be, this is the guy that's going to lead you in points per game, right? At least on my end. This is going to be the guy that will light it up in a game where you need one, right? You have all these different guys that are struggling out of the portal to create an isolation or to handle the ball well. Robinson's one of the few guys on this roster that you can put the ball in his hands and trust him to go make a play. Like, those were the conversations that I was having throughout the summer, is expecting Robinson to be that guy. Yes, I think if you are going to do something significant, Jaxson Robinson has to turn things up. And it's become a little bit of a joke recently for me. I don't know if joke's the right word, but last year I was rooting for Justin Edwards, man. I was rooting for him to lock in at some point. And I before every single game, I do my game preview episode, and I just, like, at one point just sneak it in, like, Justin Edwards flex game. Like, are we going to see that here? And I keep saying with Robinson now, it's like we are going to see him just go insane at some point. You're going to see a 25+ point performance where he just lights it up. The ball goes in the hole, and you see his confidence skyrocket. It's going to happen. And when it does, I'm really excited to see how the back half of the season turns out, because that's kind of what happened with Edwards, in a sense, with his efficiency. Like, he's just caught fire. And he was able to kind of take things over. So yeah, J-Rob, I want to see him play well. And if he does, man, Kentucky's going to be a hard team to stop. They've got their flaws, and that's another question I wanted to ask you here, Steven, is obviously Kentucky's got different things that you can dive into. That's like, well, they don't do this well, they don't do that well. This number is bad. This number could be better. If there's just one thing that you could pick that Kentucky could improve upon, whether it be a statistic, whether it be an offensive or defensive thing, whether it be a player, what would you have that be?
3-point shots start going in again.
Yes.
Because so much of this offense is revolved around shooting a lot of threes. I think one of the reasons they can't get that shot volume up is because nobody wants to shoot them, because they're not going in. Yep. And I think once they start falling again, which they will, there's a lot of good shooters on this team outside of Kobe and Jaxson. I feel comfortable whenever Andrew Carr pulls from three. And as a matter of fact, he passes up on too many, in my opinion. Brandon Garrison, I'm fine. His shot looks fine. Because a lot of what Pope wants to do with this offense, I mean, it does require them to have to be guarded behind the 3-point line. And the teams have been doing a pretty good job of taking away some good looks. Ohio State, I was watching that game from the floor, or at least the first half, and there just wasn't space. So getting back to being able to get guys open, Kobe Brea's shot volume should be much higher. I watched him do a lot of pump fakes instead. Like I watched him against Brown, like hesitate. What? You're Kobe Bryant. Why would you hesitate?
All right, before we wrap up our conversation with Steven Peake, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on players which will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, yardage totals. It's all awesome. You can visit FanDuel.com to join today. That is FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. You can make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook betting partner of the NFL. At Dayton, my gosh, dude. Like I had like 3 different episodes during the summer where I like went off about this, about how just Dayton, they had so many great 3-point shooters, but Kobe was the best. And it's like, you got to get him more shots, dude. And I went and did the math. It was like, if Dayton took or gave him like 2.5 or like 3 more 3-point attempts per game, and he kept his efficiency, they would have like won. I think it was 2 or 3 games that were decided by like 2 or 3 points. That would have been big for their resume last year. So Brea, man, he could be another guy that's a major X factor here as far as just like you letting it fly, dude. I don't know. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on this as far as confidence goes, but it like the volume as far as like you only got 28 threes up against Brown. Like this team, with the way that these guys were shooting before they came here, like you know they can play better than this, and it's just about getting them up. So I want to see that, which this kind of helps us flow into this weekend. I want to see that against Florida. I want to see the confidence. I want to see the threes go up. Probably going to be a lot of scoring in this game regardless. I want to see Kentucky kind of like make strides there and just start hit your open shots. Some of these, by the way, you're talking about like some of these you can't create space against Ohio State. Some of it's confidence. Man, Kentucky's just bricked several just wide open shots in important moments. And I just want to see those fall.
It's a confidence thing. And I think that they'll start going in again. That, like you said, there's guys who we know can hit those shots that are missed wide open shots. I just don't think that's going to happen all season. And at home against Florida this Saturday, I think it's a good chance. Here's what I was hoping that Ohio State game would be. Kentucky's had a couple statement wins, right? Duke and Gonzaga, those are statement wins, but I wanted like a statement win, like oh, they could be a national contender. Like they blew out a really good team. I mean, Florida's really good. What's the best team they've beaten? They beat Wake Forest, Florida State. Might want to pull up their schedule and see what their best win was, but I don't think they've beaten like anybody that's really, really good, unless I skipped over somebody.
North Carolina, according to Kim Palm, is the best team that they're beaten, but North Carolina's what, 8-6 now after losing to Louisville?
Louisville last night. Right. On Wednesday night. So is this an opportunity that you're at home where you can like shots go in and this could be that sort of win that makes people believe again? That's after that Gonzaga comeback. I think a lot of people maybe moved the goalpost maybe they moved them to a different field and thought that, oh, this is a national title contending team all of a sudden. Or, maybe it was after the Duke game, but this could, ironically be like a game that just brings it all back for us. You lose to Ohio State by 20. Really, it wasn't 20. Lance, am I wrong? I mean, was it really 20? No. I know we're kind of splitting hairs here, but it was like they didn't really beat them by 20.
No, they had a run there at the end of the game that kind of blew it out of proportion. But Kentucky, it felt like they were having another comeback there, like at the beginning of the second half, where they cut it to 5 points, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and then you had the ball that I don't know if it's Brandon Garrison's fault. The pass was thrown like we clocked it at like 80 miles per hour, but it went like there was a chance there to maybe cut it to 4, and you had the crowd, and then that's when Ohio State calls some out. They come down, hit a 3. Kentucky went zone, and Kobe. There was like 3 guys guarding one guy because somebody didn't know they were in zone. They thought they were in man, and then. That's probably why, we always say Calipari never goes zone. And I'm like, I'm wondering, is it just not taught at like younger ages? Is this the reason we can't do it? Because guys, if you don't work on it enough, I guess guys get lost.
Right.
But that led to the Ohio State 3 anyways. And that was kind of the game. And it was dead in there, Lance. That was the weirdest Kentucky basketball environment because it was, there weren't that many people because North Carolina fans bought up a lot of the tickets. Yeah. And there was like 90 Ohio State fans there. So it was so quiet. It's weird.
I remember watching your post-game recap over on KSR and y'all were not happy about that venue.
No. It's a nice venue. We just don't win there very much anymore. Yeah. So just constantly having to, it would be fun. One thing I thought, when I've been a Kentucky fan my whole life. I thought when I got this job, like some of the fandom would wear off because like you just cover the team and whatever. But now it's like, no, I need them to win. Because otherwise, like people don't want to watch recaps of losses. They don't want to watch travel videos of losses. They don't want to. When they win, though, I mean, they was what, and you probably know this from doing, from your channel too. That when there's good news, when they're winning, and people they gobble it up. So like we need them to win.
Steven, I resonate with what you just said so much. Yeah, no doubt about everything that you just said to a T perfectly. So Kentucky, like we mentioned, they've got opportunities to make things happen, probably preaching a little bit of patience here. Massive game this Saturday. You talk about it's an opportunity to have some better shooting, to have the ball go in the hole, kind of like start things back up. What are your early thoughts outside of maybe the 3-point shooting on this matchup? I mean, obviously, like you mentioned, Florida, best win is UNC, but like, man, they're good. I mean, you don't stumble upon 13-0.
13-0. No, you're right. You're right. And they've beaten some they've beaten some Power 5 teams. They beat North Carolina, something UCLA couldn't do. Well, for one, this is the first big game under Mark Pope and Rupp Arena. I mean, Louisville was a big game. It was, but this is a top 10 team coming into Rupp Arena. I mean, it's not very often. I wanted to look this up before I came on, and I forgot to do it. But I wanted to look up what was the last. I mean, how many times in the last 5 years have we had a top 10 matchup inside of Rupp Arena? Probably not very often. I'm thinking maybe the 2022 where they played Tennessee. I don't know what Tennessee was ranked, or what Kentucky was ranked. They might have been just outside the top 10, but that one might be it. There's also 2019, I think might have been, but so like it's not very often. And we're getting one right out of the gate in SEC play. So I think one of the factors of this matchup is going to be the Kentucky crowd is going to bring it. I think like people talk about the Rupp Arena crowd not being good and all that stuff. Like, yeah, when they're playing Brown, it's not very good. But when it's a top 10 matchup, they bring it. And that is the first time under Mark Pope that it's going to really feel like it's this massive event that they're at. Like I think of when Calipari came in and they hosted North Carolina. Like it's going to have that sort of feel. I know Florida isn't carry the same amount of weight as North Carolina would, but like it's still Florida. I mean, like they've won a couple of national championships in my lifetime. Like it's going to be a rowdy atmosphere. As far as on the court, I mean, I think that I would just like to see Kentucky play their best game. I don't know how you feel, but this is one of the very few times where I will go into a Kentucky game at Rupp Arena and not have like pretty good confidence that they're going to win, even if they play their best. Do you think is Florida that good that Kentucky could play a great game and still lose?
No, I don't think
like that. I like hearing that.
I don't think Florida is that good for a couple of reasons. First of all, like you mentioned, their strength of schedule has not been phenomenal. I mean, it's 220th in the nation, and they haven't. I don't want to say they ain't played nobody, Paul, but like they haven't played a Duke or a Gonzaga. Like they just objectively have not. And I'm also curious about their front court rotation against Kentucky. I just don't know if I'm fired up about it. And the real question is, can Elijah Martin and Walter Clayton, can they win you a game where Kentucky goes ballistic? Like if Kentucky plays a great game, can they win you that? I don't think they can. Their 3-point defense is second nationally, which I just don't know how much I buy that if they've been playing Jacksonville, Grambling State, Florida A&M, Southern Illinois, Wichita State, North Florida. Stetson is their most recent game where they won by 40 against the 352nd best team in the nation. They went 3 of 24 from three. Like I don't know how legitimate some of their numbers are. So good team, very good team. If Kentucky plays their A game, they should win. And like you mentioned, when is that A game coming? It very well could be this weekend.
Yeah. Is this a potential for if Kentucky plays their best game that they could, we haven't really had that, real blowout Kentucky win against a name brand opponent yet?
Not yet.
Do you think that it's a potential? Is that on the table? I guess
it's on the table for one specific reason. It's hard to win on the road. It's hard to win on the road, and it's hard to win on the road in the SEC. I'm going to say that over and over and over and over this season. And it's going to be a bloodbath. You have 2 road games after this, by the way, against Georgia and Mississippi State. Don't feel great about Kentucky in either of them.
I know.
Just simply because of the fact that it's on the road. Getting this
even
at
Georgia.
Home,
I mean,
yeah, you could talk me into drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit here with Florida as far as like, how much do the stats matter? This is in Rupp. This means a lot to Kentucky. Their defense, I saw things against Brown that I liked, that they're improving on, that they're aware of. Just a lot of aggressiveness, which I think you can kind of get away with because it's Brown, but also can you translate that into something impactful against Florida? I don't know. There's a lot of different reasons here, Steven, that I could really kind of buy into it.
I would feel like Kentucky would be 13-0 with their schedule also. So
yes.
The record doesn't really worry me. It does when I watch them play some of those, Stetson, beating a team by 40. It's still impressive to beat another Division I team by 40.
No,
but yeah, in North Carolina, I still think like, are they really not good? Are they really not a good team? I mean, Ian Jackson has really impressed me. I thought that I'm actually kind of surprised. They got, you look at their roster, and like, it's a pretty decent roster. Like, how are they not? So yeah, that's what kind of worries me about Florida is that I don't know if they're really a top 10 team, but they're definitely a team that can beat you. And I have this as a win on my predictions. So if they don't win this one, then I would have to go with 8-10.
There you go. Final question here to you, Steven, before we get out. And you do not have to draw this out. I just want to know how you feel about Arkansas and how Coach Cal's got the Razorbacks playing. Are you looking forward to February 1st?
Early on, I was really looking forward to it because I was certain of what was going to happen. Now, I mean, and Cal's really good at these, like when he wants to beat you, like he was really good at beating Rick Pitino. So I think like he'll be focused. He might even watch film that week. So he'll be locked in trying to beat us. And I think he's got a good team. I mean, yeah, they got lucky to beat Miami. Maybe they should have a loss or 2 more, but they didn't. I mean, Boogie Flam made enough plays, and he's really good. Big Z, I still don't understand why his 3-point volume is not up. It is interesting. I watch them now how I used to watch Louisville when Rick was there. Like, I'm pulling against them, and it's not even because I don't like the players. Like, I like those guys. I mean, I like Adu Thiero. I like Zvonimir. I mean, Boogie Flan, Carter Knox, these guys that we talked to while Kentucky was recruiting, big fan. but I just can't have them win. Do you know what I mean? It's because it's watching. That's Kentucky. That's just Kentucky, and they just switched uniforms. So that would have been Kentucky's team had Cal not left. So if we watch them go win a title, like that's just we can't. Like they have to they have to lose. They have to lose. And on February 1st, if that game is close in the final few minutes, that is going to be a very tense building.
I may not make it.
I'm so looking forward to it because we haven't. I mean, that's going to be the biggest game. I mean, maybe since Cal Rick in 2009, like the very first one, like that, where was so much like tension in that building. There was a guy they cut to, CBS did, and he's crying because Edgar Sosa just tied the game. He's crying. That's what this game's going to be like. If Boogie Flan hits a shot late and it's like, oh no, like we might actually lose, there's going to be people just like seriously just like wiping like, oh, I can't even watch. So
it's going to be big.
Yes.
It's going to be big. For the life of me, if I could find a way to get into that building on February 1st, I would. That would be huge. But Steven, I appreciate you hopping on, man. This has been fun. I love just kind of shooting the bull with somebody, talking Kentucky hoops. Please tell everybody that's listening where they can find your content, because it is very, very good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It is. Let's do the YouTube channel. YouTube, watch KSR. Just type in Kentucky Sports Radio on YouTube. You'll find it. The KSR logo on there. And then you got my Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter, handle right there. So Steven Peake KSR. And Lance, I've been watching your show since I've got this job. So the last 3 years. And obviously you do great work, and that's why you're still doing it. And I would be lying if I said I didn't take a few ideas every once in a while.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. This has been, it's fun. I respect what you guys do at KSR. Y'all got a crop of really, really talented people over there, yourself included. So I'm looking forward to at some point. I'm not in Lexington, but I'm really looking forward to some point getting up there and getting to meet some of you guys. So hopefully we can make that happen before
February
the
1st.
Season. Hey,
get the credential in as soon as you can.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Steven, once again, thank you so much for hopping on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that was our conversation with Steven Peake of KSR. Make sure to go give him a follow on Twitter. Go subscribe to the KSR YouTube channel. Great work that they do over there. Really appreciated having him on. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hey, you can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_, and you can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.